Hello and welcome to a Monday edition of the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm Chris Carter. He's Ray Fittipaldo. We're your Steelers writers. And as always, you can find this show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of our Monday, Wednesday, Friday episodes of the North Shore Drive podcast, as well as the daily content that comes out from all of our sports writers here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And as always, this episode is brought to you by Edgar Snyder Associates. Did you know they also do workers' compensation? When you've been hurt on the job, you need to know who decides when you're better, who decides when your treatment's over, and who decides when your benefits are over. The answer might surprise you. It's the insurance company's doctors. How does that make you feel? If the answer's not great, you got to call someone who has your back. That's Edgar Snyder Associates. Call them today at 1-800-94-EDGAR. They're fight for the workers' compensation rights that you deserve. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. Ray, the offensive line was the group that we were going to watch the most heading into training camp. We talked about, hey, there's Aaron Rodgers, there's DK Metcalf, there's Jaylen Ramsey, all that's well and good, but this team is going to be dependent on this offensive line coalescing, growing together, and we've seen plenty of bumps in the road. Broderick Jones suffered a first week of training camp injury, and he only just got back to full pads Sunday. So we'll talk about him. Isaac Seumalo's been on the NFI list. He's off of it now, but he's still working his way back. And meanwhile, the defensive front has just been dominant for most of camp. In fact, they did 2 sets of 7 shots, 1 7 shots and one more like a goal line scenario. And the defense won the combined set 12-2 in all 14 plays. Are you alarmed at all about the offensive line right now, or do you feel like this is just the natural part of a young offensive line having to come together in camp against what is a really talented front?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things, Chris. On some levels, I'm not concerned because you see, especially with the passing game, right? Like the chemistry between Aaron Rodgers and the receivers, it's not there yet. So you think, okay, let's give that time. But on the other hand, when you look at the offensive line in the running game, there's not really you don't have the chemistry excuse because a lot of those guys are coming back, other than the injuries to Jones and Seumalo, of course. So you referenced the goal line drill yesterday. Not a lot of movement, to be honest with you, from the offensive line in those drills. If I just looking at the team periods overall throughout the first week of padded practices, it was the same thing, maybe a couple of good runs here and there, but a lot of defenders in the backfield for tackles for loss, a lot of plays at the line of scrimmage or 1 to 2 yards down the field. So it hasn't been an impressive start for the offensive line, but I guess my point is I'm willing to give them a little bit of time. Let's get Seumalo healthy. Let's get Jones healthy, and let's see how they look maybe a week or two from now. But yes, I'm a little bit concerned that the running game isn't really up to snuff just yet.
It's not. And again, things take time, but like you said, this is supposed to be a strength of this team. We're seeing the strengths of Derek Harmon come to light. Heck, we saw it out of YA Black, even a 5th round pick. They were playing pretty strong. They were beating up this offensive line on Sunday in full pads. And I think it is a concern. Broderick Jones, I think, is the one that people are mostly concerned with, and rightfully so. He gave up the second most pressures of an offensive tackle last year in the NFL, only behind Dan Moore. And now he's at left tackle where he's supposed to have been for a while now, but wasn't because Dan Moore couldn't play right. And that's a whole other saga. But now he's here. Now, I will say Sunday, he at least won some. Like he at least won against Alex Highsmith, but there's also the question, did Alex Highsmith get hurt on that play? And then he split with Nick Herbig, which was looking better than anything he was showing. But even earlier on Sunday, there was one play where he pulled and it looked like he wasn't supposed to pull, and he got pulled out, and he was getting talked to by one of the assistant offensive line coaches. And there's been a lot of questions about Broderick Jones. Now, The Steelers seem to have faith that he's going to figure it out. He's still the youngest player on the offensive line. But Ray, I do think that there needs to be a sense of urgency here from the young tackle from Georgia, because this is his contract year, kind of. If he doesn't play well, it's going to be a tough question for Omar Khan to answer, or maybe it's going to be an easy question just to say no to a 5th-year option next year.
Well, listen, when you're going against guys like Highsmith and Nick Herbig and T.J. Watt every day, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. That's going to happen. The inexcusable things are the mental errors, right?
Yeah.
Like we saw that from Broderick last year. He's in his 3rd season. That cannot happen to a 3rd-year guy. I mean, truth be told, if you're an NFL player, I don't care if you're a rookie or whatever, you got to know what you're doing when you're out there. So I understand there's a learning curve on some levels, but not for a third-year player. So I'm not sure why that stuff is still happening in year 3, but like I said, you can't have it. So, to your point, I thought he was better. I didn't get over there yesterday in time for the one-on-ones when he went against Highsmith, but his 2 reps against Herbig yesterday, he kind of made Herbig run around him. I would say, those 2 reps were probably a draw. So he was better on Sunday than he has been. But yeah, I mean, listen, he's got to be much better than he has been. Well, let's just wait a little while to see once he gets to be 100% from this injury. Let's maybe judge him a couple of weeks into the preseason, see how he does against the Jaguars and the Bucs. And then if this continues, maybe we'll sound the alarm bells then.
I thought we've seen some good things out of Troy Fautanu. There's been times on the right side that he's blocked well. And in fact, like there were a couple, like in the first padded practice, the only like positive runs they got really came off of, and they went off tackle on his side. Right. But even he was saying like, hey, I'm not playing well enough right now. I have to keep getting better. And I think it's good to have that attitude. But what have you seen from Troy Fautanu in the 3 padded practices we've watched so far?
Yeah, I think he's been solid. Not as much talk certainly about Broderick Jones. I think the expectation is from fans and honestly from people inside that building that if Troy Fautanu is healthy, he's going to lock down that right side and, he's going to be an above average player. They thought he was going to be really good as a rookie last year before that injury. And I think the expectations are the same this year. Now, the question for me about Troy is, and, he talked about this a little bit in the spring at OTAs and minicamp. He's just got to get out there again. And when you miss an entire year, Chris, it takes some time for you to get your feet wet again. So I think these 3 preseason games this year are going to be really important. You're not going to see a lot of veterans play in this first preseason game, but I would bet you're going to see a lot of offensive linemen get their reps. Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu, I could see Mike leaving him out there for well into the second quarter. I could definitely see
he
that.
Needs to.
Zach Frazier has had some issues with snaps. I could see Zach playing into the second quarter. I'm not sure about Sayamalo. I think they'll play Mason too. But my point is this is still a very young offensive line. They need to play together.
Yeah.
But they also need their reps individually to go out there and get better just because a lot of these guys have either been injured or they've been below the line and they need those reps.
I agree with you. I mean, offensive line might be the unit that needs the most chemistry to function in the NFL because it's so important when you're all taking a first step with your right foot and you're doing a right foot lead or a right foot reach that you're all doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And when you get it all right at the same time, that's when you become the best line in football or one of the best lines in football. It was a big reason why the Steelers invested so much to keep together the crew of Pouncey, DeCastro, Foster, Villanueva. Like they wanted those guys to stick together because they were like, hey, if they're together, then they're going to be on point. And you saw so many times they could just push people off the ball as a collective because they knew each other so well. That's what this group needs to get to. But again, it took time for them to get there. I always bring up the example. I think it was David DeCastro's second year in the NFL, first drive of the season, he accidentally takes out Marquise Pouncey's knee and he's out for the year. So, the stuff, not that that's going to happen, but this is a challenge for this group to get together. I do think that more so even than Aaron Rodgers, and certainly there's some, lack of, synchronizing of the passing game right now, but even more than them, because I think that you can expect Rodgers and Metcalf as veterans to get it together. This line needs to get it together. And they're young guys. I do think that they still have plenty of battles in front of them before they prove themselves heading into week 1.
Yeah, and listen, we've used youth and inexperience as an excuse for this group for the last year or so. I don't think that can be an excuse anymore. They did not invest in the offensive line in free agency or the draft this year. So basically, the group is what it is, and they need those guys to step up and play to their pedigree. Listen, you got 2 first-round picks at tackle. Those guys have to play well. You got a second-round pick at center. He has to play well. They think a lot of Mason McCormick. He has to play well. So, yes, it's a young line in terms of experience, but also a lot of those guys are older. Troy and Mason both came into the league as older players. I think they were both 24-ish, or if not 24, 23 when they came into the league. So it's time. It's time for these guys to step up and meet that challenge and certainly be better than what they were last year and be better than what they have been through the first 2 weeks of camp. I've been largely unimpressed with what they've shown here up at Saint Vincent.
And reasonably so. I think that they have to show up a lot. And sure, the defense of the Steelers looks nasty, and maybe they are the best defense in the league. But you still got to show as an offense that you can stand up to them in practice. We'll be keeping an eye on that as practice continues tomorrow. Keep it here with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and the North Shore Drive podcast on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. We still got a lot to discuss all throughout training camp. We'll keep it going here on the North Shore Drive podcast. Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.